All right, today we're pulling on a thread, and you will not believe where it leads. It's a story that ties together a sanctioned Russian oligarch, a big-shot Silicon Valley venture capital firm, and, yes, the infamous financier Jeffrey Epstein. This is a tangled web of influence that stretches all the way from the Kremlin to the heart of American tech.
$216 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That is a huge number.
So you gotta ask, right, why on earth would a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley get hit with a penalty this big? Well, it turns out this isn't just about the money. This is about a door that was propped wide open for a sanctioned Russian billionaire, giving him a backstage pass to the US financial system and some of its most sensitive tech. So yeah, let's dive into this.
Okay, so our story kicks off here with Section 1, Silicon Valley's Russian problem. The firm at the very center of that giant penalty is called GVA Capital. And when the U.S. Treasury went after them, they didn't mince words. They called the violations egregious.
Essentially, GVA Capital was caught red-handed willfully violating U.S. sanctions. Think of them as a secret backdoor for a guy who was supposed to be completely frozen out of the American economy. And get this, they allegedly kept doing it even after their own lawyers told them to stop.
And this is the man they were helping, Suleiman Kerimov. Now, he's not your average billionaire. He's also a seriously powerful politician in Russia. The U.S. sanctioned him back in 2018, accusing him of laundering millions upon millions of euros. We're talking allegations of carrying up to 20 million euros in suitcases into France.
And here's where Silicon Valley gets tangled up in all this. Using GVA Capital as a front, Kerimov secretly poured $20 million into a company called Luminar. And Luminar makes critical sensor technology for self-driving cars, stuff used by major brands like Volvo and Mercedes-Benz. And just like that, sensitive American tech was made available to a sanctioned oligarch.
So that brings us to Section 2, the sanctioned oligarch's playbook. You see, helping Kerimov wasn't just some random mistake. To really get the mindset here, you have to look at how he operates back home. It's a pattern of aggressive and, let's be honest, pretty ruthless financial moves.
This quote right here, it says it all. It's from a report analyzing a big company takeover in Russia, and it describes a scheme that in the United States would be a serious crime. We're talking 5 to 12 years in prison, but in certain circles over there, it's just business.
So here's allegedly how it worked. The company's stock was flying high at 91 rubles. Then, Kerimov's executives get involved, announce a reorganization, and boom, the stock price gets cut in half, down to 45. This allowed his team to swoop in, launch a hostile takeover, and buy back shares from foreign investors at a huge discount, basically wiping out their investment.
Which brings us back to the sheer audacity of it all. This is a quote from one of the co-founders of GVA Capital, the firm that helped Kerimov. He said investing in Silicon Valley is the sacred right of every human being on Earth. A sacred right. I mean, with a belief like that, you can almost see how they might feel justified in ignoring U.S. sanctions, can't you?
Okay, so that's one way to get influence, direct, secret investment. But there's another way, a more subtle way. It's not just about buying things, it's about shaping opinions, building networks, and public relations. And that is where the next piece of this wild puzzle clicks into place.
Now we're at Section 3, from Putin's fan to Epstein's PR. Yep, you heard that correctly. This is where the story takes a really sharp turn, and we meet someone with a career path that is, well, it's pretty remarkable, and frankly, deeply weird. Let's talk about Maria Drokova. Her journey starts in Russia, where she's the press secretary for a very pro-Kremlin youth group. She even got famous for a photo of her kissing Vladimir Putin. Okay. Then she moves to the U.S., gets a green card, and totally reinvents herself as a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, even starting her own firm. And then, believe it or not, she takes on a new client, Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, the timing here is absolutely crucial. This wasn't before everyone knew about Epstein. This was in 2017, a full decade after his first conviction for sex crimes involving a minor. So, with his criminal record out in the open, Drokova was pitching journalists, trying to help rebrand him.
And that connection, of course, leads us right here, to Section 4, the unraveling of Epstein. You see how it all connects? The stories of hidden money and shadowy influence networks all seem to lead to the dark center of this web, to one of the most notorious men of our time. In July 2019, it all came crashing down. Epstein was arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges. They put him in a high-security federal jail in Manhattan. And then, on August 10th, he was found dead in his cell. And that brings us to our final section, a web of unanswered questions. Because the story didn't end there. For millions of people, Epstein's death wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a whole new set of questions, because the official explanation was met with instant and powerful doubt.
So what was the official story? The New York City Medical Examiner conducted an autopsy, and the ruling was simple: suicide by hanging. According to the authorities, that was it. Case closed.
But the circumstances were, to put it mildly, suspicious. The two guards who were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes, asleep for hours. They later admitted to faking the records. His cellmate transferred out the day before he died. The two cameras right outside his cell mysteriously malfunctioned. And maybe the biggest red flag, a pathologist hired by Epstein's family found neck injuries that he said were more common in homicide than in suicide.
And this isn't some fringe belief. The public skepticism is huge. You can see it in this poll. Only 16% of Americans actually bought the official story. A massive 45% believed he was murdered to keep him from testifying against powerful people. The rest were just plain unsure what to think.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from a sanctioned oligarch using venture capital to break U.S. law to a former Kremlin youth leader doing PR for a convicted sex offender, you see how these webs of influence operate just beneath the surface. It forces you to ask, in a world of shell companies, secret deals, and powerful connections, how many other truths remain buried, just out of sight?